As promised by Governor Newsom today, the state updated guidance on how or when theme parks might reopen in California. And as we predicted yesterday, it was confirmed that theme parks, large theme parks, would need to be in the yellow tier to reopen. We're going to talk about that and more next on Fresh Baked. So the good news is we know where we stand today. We got what we asked for. We've been asking for guidelines and we got them today. And if you're among those who were hoping to see the parks open sooner rather than later, it's going to be tough going for a little while because, as we mentioned, it's confirmed large theme parks, Disneyland for example, will need to be in the yellow tier before they can reopen. And unfortunately, it's kind of a bit worse than that even. As expected, the state is going to separate theme parks between small theme parks and the rest, large theme parks, I guess, with 15,000 guest capacity being the benchmark between small and large. Smaller parks will be able to reopen at 25% capacity once their county is in the orange tier. But perhaps even more restrictive than that is that they're also limiting it to outdoor attractions only, and only those guests who live within the county of the theme park are able to attend. So obviously Disneyland at an 80,000 guest capacity is nowhere near this small benchmark, nor are Knott's Berry Farm or Universal Studios Hollywood. But if even their respective counties that those theme parks are in were in the orange tier, they still wouldn't be able to have any indoor attractions, i.e. almost every single ride at Disneyland and Universal Studios. Nor would you be able to go to Disneyland if you lived in, let's say, San Diego County or Riverside or LA County, all of those surrounding counties around Disneyland, which is much more restrictive than the previous rumor that we had heard of being 120 miles. So for large theme parks, it's pretty much yellow tier or bust. I will say though, and it wasn't stated specifically, but one thing that I inferred is that if they do achieve yellow tier, the yellow tier doesn't have the same restrictions regarding indoor versus outdoor attractions or the limits on the radius from which you can attend a park. That wasn't specified in the update, so I have to think that maybe once you achieve yellow, you can pretty much do whatever you want, with the exception of the capacity limits, which they did still say 25%. So I don't know how you grow past 25. That hasn't been detailed yet. I guess more information to follow. And that's pretty much it for the guidelines, other than the usual stuff that we're going to expect. Social distancing setups, throughout the park, mandatory masks, pre-sold tickets only, the usual stuff. By the way, they did also reference pro sports, live sports, stating that pro sports can resume allowing guests in the orange tier. By the way, I will take a moment here to observe that they didn't make any kind of distinction for pro sports between indoor and outdoor events, which is curious because, as any sports fan knows, a solid half of all games are played indoors. In fact, I'm pretty sure all of the NBA and the NHL games are played indoors, last time I checked. But with that out of the way, what does this mean for Disneyland or other SoCal theme parks or California theme parks? What is the forecast? Well, the forecast is grim, I'm sorry to say. With Orange County we're still in the red tier. Never mind orange tier or yellow tier, we're still in the red tier. So as I've said in the past, Disneyland couldn't even open today, even if they were allowed to in the orange tier, because we haven't got there yet. And the statistic keeping us from, moving up in tiers is the new cases per 100,000 metric. In order to get into orange, you have to be under 4 new cases per 100,000. Last time I checked, we were something like 4.4, kind of just dipping between 3.6, 4.4, that kind of range. And this is for the last month or more. So it's been tough sledding just to get into orange. But getting to yellow is another thing altogether, because the yellow tier requires 1 or less cases per 100,000 new cases. So for Orange County, with a population of around 3.2 million, that means 32 or less new cases per day, where today we're currently somewhere in the 140 new cases per day. That is a very big gap, a very long, considering we're having a hard time getting down to 136, 135 to get into orange. We've got to get to 135 and then another 100 more to get to the yellow tier. Many are describing the yellow tier as essentially impossible, a position that I have maintained in the past. When we spoke about this last, there were just 3 counties in the entire state of California that were in the yellow tier, and all of those were up north in very rural, woodsy areas. Not a lot of, very little really high density population, 1 or 2 major cities, and that's it. This week, things have improved a little bit. There are now 8 counties in the yellow tier, so things are getting better, I guess. But again, most of those counties, all of those counties, in fact, are in the north. Nothing in Southern California. In fact, Secretary Galley was asked in the Q&A session after the update, he was asked about this very thing, about the difficulty of a county like Los Angeles or Orange County ever getting to yellow tier. And he did agree that it would be difficult, but he did point out, which kind of, San Francisco somehow this week got into the yellow tier. They got there, which is great news, obviously, and it kind of blows my mind a little bit because that is a very, very dense population. It's a very small little area, kind of like New York City. And how they got to yellow tier is just incredible. I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they did it, and I don't know if what they did can be done in a county like Orange or LA. You can draw your own comparisons between the two, between San Francisco and LA and Orange. So I'm not sure if what they're doing is applicable here. But having said that, knowing that Orange County is still stuck in red, it does give me pause. I'm not exactly optimistic about that, considering how much trouble we've had just in getting out of the red tier. And the same for LA, which is still in purple. I mean, they've got Universal is in. It's going to be a while. I mean, it's a complete change for them to get from purple to yellow. So I have some concerns about that naturally, and so do actually the mayor of Anaheim and the president of Disneyland, Ken Potrock. Anaheim Mayor Henry Sadu stated that the guidelines fail working families and small businesses, and that too many Anaheim hotels, stores, and restaurants will not survive another year of this. Now, I can't speak to why he added that it would be another year, that it would be another year of businesses being closed. I'm not sure why he's using that figure or where that comes from. I've heard other people say something similar to that. I don't know where that comes from. We just watched San Francisco do it in a few months. But, maybe I'm not really, I shouldn't speak to that. I can't say, I'm not an authority on this subject, so I'll just move on. Because Ken Potrock, president of Disneyland, also had something to say. He said that Disneyland has proven that they can reopen parks safely, but nevertheless, the state of California continues to ignore this fact, instead mandating arbitrary guidelines that it knows are unworkable and that hold us to a standard vastly different from other reopened businesses and state-operated facilities. Like sports, as just noted here today, and zoos and aquariums are being held to a different standard as well than theme parks. It's a fair point that he's making. But having, it's hard trying to process all this, trying to see both sides as much as you can, trying to be patient and understanding and all this, which is something that I practice, or I try to practice every day. I'm trying, but I have to say it's difficult, it's frustrating at times, and I feel like the only way forward at this point, having consumed all of this, is to just get to yellow tier. I feel like that's the only thing, as passive observers as we are, our only way forward is yellow tier. We can argue, we can blame people, we can sign petitions, but in the end, it's a thing that we can't control. We can't control the decision-making processes of either the state or theme parks. As passive observers to this situation as we are, the only thing that we can do is something that we can control. We can wear our masks, we can practice social distancing, we can get tested, and stay home when we're sick. The basics. To my thinking, and you can disagree with me if you want, but to my thinking, my position, how I'm going to behave going forward is to try to act in a way that helps get us to the yellow tier. It's the only way forward, and the more I think about it, if San Francisco can do it, then it's at least possible. It's at least possible if they can do it. What else can we do, right? We could be vocal, and I definitely support that. I definitely support people expressing themselves and speaking their minds and saying the things that they want to say and getting that word out. But also, do what we need to do in order to effect the change that we want to get to. Because if that is ineffective, if we're not able to make the change, then what? We still have to survive this. We still have to get through. So let's go for yellow tier. And again, that's just my opinion. That's just the way I feel about it. I may or may not be in the majority on that, but it's the only way that I know how to go forward. And with that, I'm going to remind everybody that our food drive is continuing this week. Our Second Harvest Food Bank food drive is going on. We're trying to raise money to help out those families affected by the shutdown, both Disney cast members and other families, but really anybody in the county that needs help due to the shutdown of Disneyland and other theme parks, like Knott's Berry Farm. You can find a link below in the description, and obviously any contribution you can make would be considered very helpful in your kindness as always, is greatly appreciated. We'd love you guys for that, and we know how kind you guys are. And otherwise, until next time, guys, thank you very much for watching. Know that we love you, and we're here for you, and we'll see you next time. Fresh Baked.